Well, how many of you have had a project and you kind of got things planned out and thought, yeah, this is what I think I'm going to do? Oftentimes we refer to that as Plan A. Well, I've been working on Plan A on this mud wagon, and maybe this week we might try Plan B. And who knows, by the time we get done, we might be on C, D, or E. Well, last week's video, I kind of stirred the pot when I was sharing some of my thought processes of trying to figure out how this seat assembly goes together and how it ties into the top itself. Well, one thing in my sitting, trying to figure out location, I did decide that I was going to take the extended heel off of these risers and make them uniform. I did that. It allowed me to put this rear seat back another 1.5 inches, a little more leg room, and it did open up the access to this rear seat. But that was Plan B. I might go to Plan C regarding these risers. This week, a number of you have sent pictures from all over of different styles of wagons that you have run across, trying to help and give me some ideas on what to do. You know, it's not so much a problem of how to build a coach. The struggle for me is to how to build this coach. This coach has its own unique history from its own location. It has its own builder, and that's what I'm trying to ascertain is what is correct to this coach. Just to build a mud wagon, yeah, not a big deal, you just build a mud wagon. As we're all finding out, there are lots of varieties of styles in mud wagons. But there was one individual that sent me a picture from the same Matsura collection from the Washington State University collection. And this was a picture that was not of the same coach. And he acknowledged that in his email. But there were some things that when I saw that coach, that highlighted in my mind, first, it's from the right area. In the background, you can see that there's Okanagan, and then it has real, I'm assuming probably realty, realtor, real estate, something along that area. So it puts this two-seat coach in the location of Okanagan. And another thing that you'll notice is the man that's standing about where the rear seat is, and he's a portly type built man, and he has some paperwork in his hand. Well, if you look at the first picture that we've been looking at on this three-seat coach, there's the same man in my estimation. He has a coat on in this picture, but you look at his face, his hair, the way he is built physically, I think we have the same man. This second picture puts this man in the town of Okanagan. The first picture doesn't, but I'm going to say this is the same businessman. So it puts these two coaches, I'm thinking, in the same town, and I'm going to guess out of the same carriage shop or the same local wagon shop. One of those things is in the body style of the box itself in relation to the depth of these risers underneath the seats. The relationship between the two in both pictures is very similar. I have these measurements and hence the relationship because of the irons that were left physically on this coach. The relationships on these two pictures look to me very similar. So there's another thing in the side view of this that is now more exposed than it is in the first picture, that is all concealed because of all the people standing along the side. But now I can see the style of these risers. These I put a little S-curve into, and now I see on this coach, they were just a gradual concave curve. I think I'm going to make that adjustment because now I have evidence that that's probably what this coach was also, if it came out of the same shop. I'm thinking maybe it did. Second thing is in the seat bases. In this second picture, we can clearly see that these had solid back seats with an iron armrest that came down the side arms. And the irons that we were looking at last week, I was puzzling between whether they were side irons to the top or possibly were they irons for a solid seat back. Numbers of mud wagons that I have looked at that are truly mud wagons have had a lower seat back, and there would be an open space and then a backrest. I have not run across a lot, and I haven't seen them all by a long shot, that have had solid seat backs. This second picture that Matt sent to me shows a solid seat back seat on a mud wagon. So if that was this particular wagon builder's style, as it was on this two-seat coach, I'm thinking because of the irons and evidence of this second picture, these were solid seat backs as well. So the question is now, is the framework of my seat base correct? And I'm thinking it's not. Now this style of seat base that I built is very, very, very common in carriage work, sleigh work, coach work, very prominent. Very seldom do you see a solid seat base for a carriage seat or a coach seat. But these irons that I was puzzling about last week had one bolt through the framework and a second bolt out in this 5/16 wood insert in this style of a seat. And that bothered me. Well, I wasn't listening to what the irons told me. How many times have we heard, "You never listen to me"? I have both heard that said to me and I have said that to others. You didn't hear a thing I was saying. And I feel like that's what was happening on this occasion here. This iron was telling me, but I go to a solid seat base. I don't belong on an external frame with an internal panel. I belong on a solid seat base. I wasn't hearing what it was saying. I went back and I looked through some photographs of coaches that I have laid my hands on, take the pictures of, actually looked up close, and there are a number of those that have solid seat bases on those mud wagons. I was so focused on what is so common and typical that I wasn't listening to what this iron was telling me. I belong on a solid seat base. So now I'm thinking I need to go to plan B on my seat bases. I was going to rework these and trim them from a 46 down to a 44. I think my 44 is probably pretty close to correct. I think 42 might be a little short. It might work. But I think I need to go to a solid seat base on these seats instead of this style of framed up seat that I have. Plan B. You know, I've mentioned a number of times in the past that the best teachers that I've had have been the wagons themselves. And I feel like in this case, I wasn't paying attention to my teacher. These irons now on this type of a base kind of go, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I was initially. So the top, I think, still needs to come down to the seat bases, and that's primarily because of the style of this rear ironwork to the luggage boot. There is no structural framework come to the body. That second picture seems to indicate that the iron comes right out of the corner, but it is a different style of iron, comes up, steps over the side, and then goes up to the top. So I think that premise was right. The top frame comes down to the back of the rear seat. Now we got to deal with the front seat, how that happens. But before we get there, I'm going to go ahead and put the arms in the back and the solid back on these and get these seats built like I think they were now initially. Well, this is how I think these seats are going to look. I had one set of irons that makes one seat. Now these side arm irons, they have to be fitted to the side arm. If you notice in that old picture of the second coach, these arms are actually tapered down, which matches the irons that I have here. They're a little tweaked. I'll have to straighten those up. But at this point, I don't have them glued and screwed all together. I've got to do some finishing, put some rounded corners, do all that fine tuning. But this is how I think from that second picture that Matt sent me and these irons that were left, I think these are the right style of seats for this coach. Anyway, appreciate you following along. It's been quite a puzzle. Thanks for watching.